Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 3v3 on Argus Desert Gate, and we have a faction war between the Eldar and the Chaos Space Marines. Our first player is Lomors, playing as the Eldar Warlock. This is a hybrid melee and spellcasting hero, can emphasize either side depending on how you kit him out. Next up, we're going to have a pair of Farseers. This is a spellcasting, buffing, and debuffing hero. Our first one is played by Rostam 313, and our next one is played by UltraChp. On the other team, we're going to start off with a pair of Plague Champions, ranged heroes that can support vehicles well. You can also get melee weapons later. Our first one is Fear, and our second one is Ebbo. Finally, we're going to have Captain Pronin playing as the Chaos Lord. Tanky melee hero with Terminator armor, so he cannot be knocked down or suppressed. Alright then. So we've got the Chaos Lord moving in. Looks like he's already managed to bleed at least 2 models off of one of the Dire Avenger squads. Dire Avengers, as a rather low health ranged unit, need to make sure they're using cover, and right here they do not appear to be using cover. But I think the Banshees coming in are going to help this engagement a lot. Even if they do get knocked over by Kill the Weak, if they really just focus on the Chaos Space Marines, that'll help them out a lot. Chaos Space Marines are taking the garrison, but now their support has left the field, and if I think if the Dire Avengers upgrade to the aspect of Avenger and throw a grenade, they could actually threaten to wipe the Chaos Space Marines, but they're not going to try that, it looks like. Not going to spend the resources, just going to take advantage of the fact that they are going to win this engagement, probably no matter what. Or they're just going to be annoying, come out of the garrison, actually just retreat to safety. I thought they were going to get out of the garrison, get back in, then get back out. Meanwhile, down here, I'm hearing that bottom is done. Oh my god, that's got to be the end of this squad of Dire Avengers, and yes, in fact it is. UltraChp struggling a lot in this lane. Looks like he lost 1 squad, and as well as quite a few, 2 models on another squad of Dire Avengers. So the top lane going pretty strongly in favor of Lomors. Lomors is a name that I recognize, so I'm pretty sure he's a pretty good player. Some of the names in this cast I don't recognize, so I don't know how good they are. Banshees, Banshees get in. They're going to continue to chase after the Chaos Space Marines. It doesn't look like they're going to get a model, but they are going to scare the Plague Champion off as well. I think if they just kept chasing after the Chaos Space Marines, the Plague Champion might have actually managed to take a model off of them. Alright, man, these Dire Avengers right here almost looks like they're wearing like a picnic blanket on their backs. Quite a pattern and quite a paint scheme on them. So, looks like Rostam, I believe Rostam moved, he moved from the middle to go down to the bottom lane to help out. Needs to be careful because a flank is incoming, but right now it's only a squad of heretics, which definitely isn't enough. But he's starting to move more of his units in position. This is Ebbo, while, Ebbo, hard to, okay, that is Ebbo. Meanwhile, double grenade launcher heretics might actually do fairly well against the, wow, but the Havocs from Ebbo nearly die. Here is the flank, though. Okay, I was going to say the Farseer should go down, but those Chaos units got disrupted by the Ranger Kinetic Pulse. Still, if anything, I feel like the punishment by Ebbo there was not as strong as it could have been. If he had done more force melee, or especially gotten melee with the heretics just on the right squads. So, if anything, the Eldar are actually not quite done with their push in this lane. The Farseer up in there, almost a little too far unsupported. She could go down, especially if these were melee heretics, but they aren't. But meanwhile, the Ranger is actually taking a lot of damage from the grenade launcher heretics. Meanwhile, the Farseer actually went very close to going down at about 15 hit points. So the Rangers, one of the things the Rangers could do is, if they actually, normally the kinetic pulse ability is mainly used as disruption, but if they actually use it against the heretics, they'll do quite a bit of damage. Alright, there is a Guardian weapon team. You know, funny thing, I just noticed that there are actually no Guardian weapon teams or really any of the platform weapons in Dawn of War 3. Whereas in this game, I feel like they're so central to Eldar play. Ooh, alright, but there we go with Plague Champion upgrading to have the Mucus Discharge, getting the Breath of Nurgle ability. Gave him some sustain in that lane so he could heal his units, but here is the response with Rostam coming back to help out again. The tough part is, how are they going to deal with the Havocs? Okay, grenade goes in as well as a kinetic pulse. 2 grenades, but the second one just kind of misses because of the knockback from the first. And if we take a look at the Farseer, she has the Doombringer. Equips a Singing Spear, even though there's also a weapon just called the Singing Spear. That improves her damage, and also she gets the Doom ability. So increasing the damage that a squad takes by 40%. And we did see it used on one of the squads right there. Although it still looks like this engagement is going in favor of Chaos. Chaos seem to be just doing well in this lane. One squad of Chaos Space Marines in particular, though, in a little bit of trouble. And the Banshees coming in actually makes a big difference. They are going to be in melee with the Heretics. The Heretics should, yeah, I was going to say should Doom Blast. That's going to help swing the battle a little bit more in Chaos's favor. But the Banshees actually just toughing it out, staying in here. The Farseer even as well, despite very, very low hit points on both. But here is once the Guardian weapon team starts firing on the Plague Champion, that's pretty much the end for the Plague Champion, and he needs to get out of there. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Lomors managing to... It looks like we've had a bit of a back and forth in the top lane. Lomors taking it back at this time, even rushed past the requisition point, so the red team actually still has the requisition point, the blue team's natural requisition point in this lane. So Ebbo says he's going to move top. So Ebbo must be... Ebbo... Yeah, so Ebbo's in the middle lane. Now here comes Pronin with some Noise Marines. Noise Marines a curious choice. Noise Marines, I don't know, they're a curious choice. I mean, right now what's going on is the Noise Marines are actually not doing well at all versus the Warlock. They just don't really do enough damage to really be a significant threat to the Warlock. And he's just going to bother them a lot in melee. They can disrupt him for a short period of time, but if there's not enough follow-up to force the Warlock off, it's still going to be a losing battle for the Noise Marines. I feel his positioning there wasn't really strong either. Might have wanted to wait until he had the support of his dual Chaos Space Marines and Havoc. With the dual Chaos Space Marines and the Havoc, he would have done a lot better against the Warlock of Lomors. So Lomors is going for more of a melee tank build with the Warlock, with the Merciless Witchblade and the Champion's Robe. This used to be an extremely powerful build. It has since been nerfed somewhat. Quite a while ago, actually. Since he really only has the synergy between... He mostly just has the Champion's Robe. And then the synergy with the Merciless Witchblade is mostly just that the Merciless Witchblade does not have a spell, so you don't get diminished use out of it by not using a spell as you would with the Warlock's other weapons. Merciless Witchblade also with a great special attack. So I think that was a great special attack in particular, probably the best in the game. It's just a big... Oh my god! Alright, I thought that was going to be the entire squad for a second with that grenade, but it wasn't. So basically the Warlock uses the Champion's Robe to use his energy as a shield. Has a 5-to-1 energy ratio, and he does have 120 points of energy, so that's basically giving him an extra 600 hit points. Farseer a little bit out of position. Meanwhile, here comes some Banshees going with the aspect of fleetness. So instead of the aspect of strength, generally the less common upgrade, since you get a little bit less versatility out of them, and instead the main thing you get is the ability to jump over obstacles. They almost seem to be jumping a little bit pointlessly sometimes over things that they might not need to jump over, or jumping over the same object more than once. Here comes the Blood Crusher. Now the Blood Crusher really needs to tie up the Bright Lance and nothing else. Excuse me. Since the Bright Lance is the main source of damage against the Blood Crusher. Scares off the Banshees, which is the secondary source of damage against the Blood Crusher. And the Blood Crusher still goes down. So that's it for the Blood Crusher. I mean, the Blood Crusher it's a tough unit to use. And it's a tough unit to use. A very time-sensitive unit. So you need to know how to use it. You need to use it during the right window of time. And you need to micro it correctly. I also think the Blood Crusher is quite a bit harder to use in team games than it is in 1v1. So we have a Wraith Lord out on the field, currently very unsupported, but I think as long as it does this, as long as it targets the Las Cannon Havocs, which is, at the time, pretty much the only source of damage against it, the only significant source of damage. Las Cannon Havocs looks like they might be going... No! They went for the Garrison, and they got wiped entirely just from that last Wraith Lord swing. That was actually incredible. So, incredible just for what the Wraith Lord did there. Not incredible in terms of that kind of being a miss micro. And we have units kiting around, but nothing here does really a significant amount of damage to the Wraith Lord. The strongest is the Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines, and they're still just not significant enough to really deter that chaos, that Wraith Lord. The Wraith Lord basically just allowed to do whatever it wanted. Maybe it'll even be allowed to finish off this heretic squad. It actually won't, but yeah. Meanwhile, in this lane, we've got a Falcon out from UltraChp, but there is a squad of Plague Marines out from Fear right here. Oh, as well as an autocannon Havoc. So actually, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Falcon to actually do things, since he needs to somehow force off one of these anti-vehicle units. And because of Fear, unlike the players in the top lane, Fear has sufficient AV. He's just going to straight up win the lane for now, get a full power bash, and UltraChp is currently just going to sit here and watch it happen. I don't agree with this at all, and yeah. So I did not agree with that at all. I think he was trying to get out around the Chaos Havoc's firing arc, but he was still just right inside of it. The Chaos Havoc's just opened fire and just ripped the Falcon apart. And I mean, then there are the Plague Marines as well. The Plague Marines not even needing to have a firing arc set up. And that Falcon was already pretty low on hit points. Needed repairs. I think he was just kind of feeling pressured to get something done after losing an entire generator farm. Alright, meanwhile, we're now going to have another squad of Havocs with a Las Cannon, but they're currently just getting overrun by the combination of the Wraith Lord as well as the melee heroes, mainly the Warlock right here. So the Warlock is going for the Warp Throw ability, which is a very powerful ability. The problem is it has a little bit of anti-synergy with his current build, because anytime he uses the Warp Throw ability, he's going to be taking away energy that he could be using for the shield. So he's a little bit less tanky if he chooses to use this build. Now, previously, the Warlock would, if he had gotten the Merciless Witchblade and the Champion's Robe, would go for the Heart of Darkness ability, which would allow him to restore both energy and health after a period of time, would synergize extremely well with the Merciless Witchblade and the Champion's Robe. But that was long ago changed, basically because that combination was really just a little too powerful. The tankiness of the Warlock was just honestly pretty ridiculous, out-tanking, honestly, most other tanky melee heroes in the game. Alright, so now we do have a rather soft answer to the Wraith Lord. We have a Chaos Dreadnought. However, this looks like it might actually start turning in favor of the Eldar. Chaos Dreadnought has been tied up by the Aspect of Strength Banshees, but the Aspect of Strength Banshees now just getting overwhelmed by the combination of... We're going to have dual Khorne Chaos Space Marines. So, heavy melee build out from Captain Pronin. Dual Khorne Chaos Space Marines. Very, very expensive. They can actually work a bit as anti-vehicle. They have their aspiring champion, so they will have the Melt-A-Pistol. I think they're just going to bash the generator farm in the meantime, though. I'm pretty sure they can even just tank a lot of the damage from the Shuriken Cannon on the Wraithlord. They don't quite want to tank the damage of its melee weapon, though. So special attack, which misses, and baits the Wraithlord into the firing arc of the Las Cannon. Excuse me. But the Las Cannon does get tied up by the Warlock, who is now in here tanking. The Champion's Robe with the Psychic Shield is active, and we're going to see, I believe that's the Bloodlust ability, the Bloodlust Global from the Chaos Lord, which starts increasing damage of Chaos squads, and I think that helped him take out the Howling Banshees. I believe that was a Howling Banshee squad wiped. Even trying to go all in on the Wraithlord, but still needs to be very, very careful with the Chaos Space Marines. Alright, Wraithlord has activated Wraithbone so that he can regenerate hit points. Now we see the Chaos Dreadnought is in here with the autocannon. The problem is this is a vanilla Chaos Dreadnought. While it is versatile and does a lot of things, it's not particularly powerful. It doesn't do a lot of anti-vehicle damage, even though it does anti-vehicle damage. Warp Throw goes in. That could be the wipe on this squad of Chaos Space Marines. I don't think it actually will be, though. But a Warp Throw is always kind of scary for whoever gets Warp Thrown, because it does often have the potential to be a wipe. Howling Banshees need to be very, very careful. Could get wiped. I think it's going to be a close call. And they do get wiped. Yeah, they were just in there a little too long. I think he should have retreated them out a long time ago and just let the Seer Council do their work. But now he has to worry about the Plague Champion. Plague Champion in a... He does have the Plague Fist as well as the Armor of Pestilence. And the Plague Champion is kind of a curious hero in that he starts out really as a ranged hero and then transforms into a melee hero later on. And the honest truth that I personally feel is that in order for him to scale into the late game, you do need to turn him into a melee hero. I believe that's a squad of Chaos Space Marines wiped by the grenades on retreat. Rostam, doing a lot of switching in between lanes, manages to punish Fear for moving a little too far, as well as help out UltraChp. You know, it seems like the Wraithlord in this lane by Lomors has been extremely, extremely dominant. Just somehow... Captain Pronin finding himself having difficulty dealing with this Wraithlord. I mean, they've got one squad. Oh, that's the wrong person. One squad of Lascannon Havocs. If anything, it looks like the Chaos Dreadnought could go down. No, they'll let it go. Just gonna go for another swing on the Heretics. Oh my God, we're gonna say Havoc Ticks. That's when you give. Never mind. Alright, Great Unclean One building for Fear. And we are seeing players in Tier 3. We already saw the Seer Council out from UltraChp, and we have Rostam working on his own squad of Seer Council. We're seeing a late-game Autark drop. You know, I think the Autark at call-in at this point is pretty good, considering we still have a lot of Tier 1 and Tier 2 squads out of the Chaos players. Most of the players are in Tier 3, but... But I lost my train of thought. Anyway, Autark is going to do well against a lot of those Chaos squads, especially things like the Chaos Heretics. I do think at this point the Chaos Heretics will... Sorry, the Autark will want to get the Energy Shield. I think she's really going to need that to function, considering we're entering the late game of a 3v3 with potentially a lot of ranged units, as well as a Plague Champion, who is going to be doing a lot of damage. Plague Champion levels to 6 by watching his squads take out the Farseer from UltraChp. This is not looking good. Seer Council at very low hit points. I mean, they're going in and they are forcing off these squads, but they're at such low hit points where they're getting to the point where they could lose a model. One Seer Council, two Seer Council models go down. And really, as with any Tier 3 squad, they're not going to be cheap to reinforce. We've also got some Chaos Terminators, currently with no weapon upgrade. I feel the Chaos Terminators may want The autocannon may. They could also force melee on the Wraith Lord, and that would actually be one of the better sources of damage against the Wraith Lord. Meanwhile, we've got the Plague Champion from Ebbo just tanking the damage there because he used Pestilent Strike to create a damage reduction aura around there. But unfortunately, he gets knocked off and cannot finish the cap. And I think he's going to need to commit to this fight. Meanwhile, we're going to have the Noise Marines quite possibly going down. Banshees, not the retreat killers that they used to be, and need to retreat. This autocannon Dreadnought still alive, still doing damage. And we're going to see the Lascannon Havoc set up in the garrison. This could potentially be the end for the Wraith Lord, except here comes an Autarch dropping in against the Havocs. This actually, instead, should be the end of the Lascannon Havoc, and there it is. With the Wraith Lord's weapon just flashing through the building, however that works. I was going to say this could still be the end of the cast. Actually, it shouldn't be. No, actually, it can be. No teleports on cooldown. That's guaranteed now to be the end, with the Seer Council actually just going in there. Autarch didn't have enough damage to do it by herself, but the Seer Council certainly did. R.I.P. Sync Kills, no longer in Dawn of War 3. I mean, they were never in Dawn of War 3, no longer in the Dawn of War series, past Dawn of War 2. Meanwhile, another Eldar squad goes down. I think that was a squad of Dire Avengers, although I almost wonder if that was like an intentional death to like clear population or something. I don't know. Alright, Chaos Terminators are here. Where did they go? They teleported. They're teleporting into the Seer Council. Risky, huge commitment. Although, since the Seer Council are not fighting back, they are going to do a huge amount of damage to the Seer Council. I almost feel like maybe if he had actually turned... Oh, but there was Bloodlust active too, so... I was going to say if he had stopped capping and actually committed to fighting the Terminators, especially with the support of the Dark Reapers, it could have worked out well in his favor, but... The Terminators had Bloodlust on them. Bloodlust is a low-key, extremely powerful global. My personal opinion is you never actually want to fight head-to-head against the Chaos Lord who has activated the Bloodlust global. Like, you want to wait it out, you want to back off. Because for the most part, they're probably going to win. My opinion. So here comes the Great Unclean One, stomping over all of these Eldar units. He's trying to focus fire the Great Unclean One, but here is an Imperial Abyss of Nurgle. I think that wiped at least one squad, maybe two. And certainly scares the rest off and gets them to retreat. So I do like... Oh, and maybe they'll retreat right through? Yes, retreat right through the center rings. And that is the end of another squad. So the Imperial Abyss, in my opinion, probably the worst overall nuke. But, did work there. It's very... It has some really... It does have destructive potential. It does. But it's also very, very difficult to use. Requires a lot of precision. Since there's only a really small area where it does a lot of damage. Outside of the center rings, it does very, very low damage. Inside the center rings, it does massive damage. So if you can get squads to retreat through those center rings, then you're in good shape. And your opponent is not.
The enemy has 100 points remaining. We are beset by chaos.
Autarch in a little bit of trouble right here. Doesn't look like she has any energy shield. So that's the Warlock from Lomors going down. Big engagement with the Wraith Lord honestly being very, very overextended. The support did not come in fast enough, so down goes the Wraith Lord from Lomors. But we're going to see a lot more happening. Long-range fire support from the Fire Prism. Banshee's trying to jump in here. You know what? This is crazy. I feel like the Great Unclean One could go down. Terminators need to be shot by something because they're just ripping things apart, especially, oh my god, the Wraith Guard are in a lot of trouble with Chaos Terminators slicing them apart. Even Khorne Chaos Space Marines, they get stunned because they lose their Exarch leader, their Warlock leader, actually. Meanwhile, I missed the Eldritch. I don't know how impactful it was. Eldar currently in a lead, 227 VPs to 58. This had been going... Another Eldritch, where is it? No, that's a terrible Eldritch. I mean, you know, I get excited whenever there is a nuke, because a nuke can always result in like a really big change, but that was a really bad nuke. Let's be honest. Alright, meanwhile... Oh, this squad of Chaos Space Marines is in quite a bit of trouble. Alright, it'll get out of there alive. This squad of Dire Avengers did not have to retreat, I don't think. Ooh, revive on the Chaos Lord. Chaos Lord level 3. Plague Champion level 5.
Engaged in melee. Now with the top.
Engaged in melee. We have an Autarch with a fusion gun. Now, you don't see that often. And she might even die here. I don't think the fusion gun has ever been proven to be very, very impactful. A much less common upgrade. Even though it could, in theory, have its place, but in practice it never really has. So Pestilent Strike by Plague Champions to create that damage resistance aura, at least from range damage. Yeah, incoming range damage by 90%. That's massive. And that's why sometimes late game you will basically see Plague Champions use Pestilent Strike and capture a point, and they will take what looks like no damage at all while they're getting shot at, and that's for 15 seconds. Alright, another Eldritch, this one on top of the Chaos Dreadnought. If we have the Focus Fire from the Fire Prism to go after the Chaos Dreadnought, that should be the end of the Chaos Dreadnought. That's all. Oh, or the Wraith Guard. Alright, that's the Wraith Guard are sufficient. If anything, are actually better because they do more damage. But they're also shorter range, needed to get closer. Blaster Master laying in shots from the Garrison. However, the Fire Prisms are anti-Garrison. They need to just target the Garrison, and that will massively destroy the Blaster Master. Blast Master. But yeah, Fire Prisms are anti-Garrison. So if he sees anything enter a Garrison, he should really target that with the Fire Prisms. Looks like some Eldar unit went down. I think it was an Autarch. Yeah, it was an Autarch that went down. Must be, I guess, an Autarch from Lomors. Here's the Autarch from UltraChp. Meanwhile, we're going to see another Nurgle Abyss. Very, very nice. I mean, the Nurgle Abysses right now are working out pretty well, but we see the way this D-Cannon actually was able to just retreat through it. And that's because it did not retreat through the middle. It retreated right outside the middle, so it was able to just retreat out of there and get out alive. 3 Fire Prisms from the Eldar players. I mean, honestly, with 3 Fire Prisms, there's really not any good reason why they shouldn't be able to hold off the top indefinitely, and that's why the Chaos players are going for the bottom, for basically the Eldar natural. Although they will have to contend with Plague Champions who could, with the Armor of Pestilence, they will be immune to weapon knockback. And then they can also just use the Plague Fist to use Pestilent Strike. It's actually very, very difficult to deny a Plague Champion who is using this build to capture a point. And sometimes that's just one of the strategies that happens with late game using... Wow, dead Autarch. Using units that can cap under fire, not necessarily winning engagements, but just capping with units that can cap under fire and really tank that damage. We might even see it here. Well, actually, no. So the red team already has the bottom VP. But, and, you know, Chaos actually has quite a bit of that. Can use the Chaos Terminators to do that, can use the Plague Champion to do it, can even use the Chaos Lord. Fear's Plague Champion is at level 10. Being pretty aggressive right here. Although that Plague Champion is so slow. But he's going to just punch apart these Wraith Guard. You know, it's funny. I've always just said Wraith Guard as both a singular and a plural. Should it be Wraith Guards? I don't know why I did that, but I just do. So the Warlock can actually tank the damage. He can tank quite a bit, although he will eventually need support. Currently he's tanking just fine, though, tying up the Chaos Space Marines. The Chaos Terminators, however. Chaos Terminators will do decent damage to him, so he does have to be careful. In fact, he actually doesn't even do great damage to the Chaos Terminator since he has the Merciless Witchblade. Actually still has a penalty against the super heavy infantry armor of the Terminators. Unless they are now heavy infantry. So Eldar forces actually now having a lot of trouble keeping the VPs, and they're actually, it's almost going to be a triple cap against them. And I mean, they've got these long-range fire prisms, but what they're lacking right now is really much more strong front line force. I mean, these fire prisms can't really push forward. They can hold a point, but they can't really push forward. Meanwhile, I think that's a big part of what Chaos has that's putting them back in this game. They've got a lot of frontline tanky units. So, of course, we've got triple Great Unclean ones. We've got Chaos Terminators, Plague Marines, just lots of tanky units that can actually stand under range fire and actually just take it for a while. Even cap under it. So it looks like another Imperial Abyss. This one I missed. Meanwhile, the Avatar of Cain potentially in trouble, being chased after by some Great Unclean ones. I mean, the Great Unclean ones shouldn't really be able to chase after the Avatar. We're going to have another unit go down. Looks like that was the Farseer from UltraChp again. And it's now going down to the wire with, despite the advantage that the blue team had, it's looking like this could be the game in favor of the red team. Looking really close, but here is Lomors actually doing his own version of trying to cap under fire. Unfortunately, the Warlock not quite going to have the same ability to do that as much as the Plague Champion or the Chaos Space Marines, and goes down for it because of the displacement that comes from the Foul Snare ability of the Great Unclean one. So I don't know, it looks like the Eldar are now falling apart under the weight of the might of Chaos. We're seeing them attempt a back cap on the contested VP, a back cap on the contested. They will get this in time to at least get the 1v1 install this out, but I don't think they can hold this for very long. It's going to be really, really tough. And here we do see the Chaos Terminators, and especially with the help of Nurgle Worship, just being able to capture under fire. As well as the Plague Champion using Mucus Discharge. I think he was even placing the Plague Champion there to take over if the Chaos Terminator models did die. And that now actually is turning into a victory for Chaos. I feel like that Eldar quote was actually so appropriate for what happened there, because last I had remembered, Eldar was winning about 200 to 50 VPs, and that was a reversal, and I'm sure it was discouraging for the people who got reversed. Alright then, that'll be it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.